potent advice, and inspiration from real self-made millionaires. Welcome to The Eventual Millionaire with your host, Jaime Masters.
Welcome to Eventual Millionaire. I'm Jaime Masters, and today on the show we have Ajit. Now, he's co-founder of Mindvalley Teach. He's a serial entrepreneur, has had tons of businesses in the past. He also wrote a book called The Book of Coaching and runs evercoach.com. Thanks so much for coming on the show today.
I'm so excited to be here, Jaime.
So I want to talk about coaching because I never thought that there was a very good book on coaching. No offense. I'm a little judgy when it comes to coaches. I remember when I first got into Coach University and I was talking to them, and everybody that I talked to never made any money at all as a coach. So I was a little, right? So, tell me a little bit more about EverCoach and what the Book of Coaching is actually about.
So it's kind of like what you said, that a lot of coaches that actually make no money whatsoever or make very little money, which barely would feel like is that even a profession worth getting into? But that's mostly because of the misunderstanding that happens around coaching as a business and the need for coaching. And recently, you would have seen a lot of people have started to show up as coaches, and the reason for that is because there's a whole opportunity that has been discovered that previously was ignored. Because people are now starting to realize that as you're becoming a professional, usually what would happen traditionally is, let's say I'm a professional, I'll go out, I'll read a book, I might attend a seminar, and I'm done, right? But what happens when you're attending a seminar? What happens when you read a book? It's not personal to you. It is very impersonal. It's very generic. And generic never really serves a high-performing individual, or serves a high-performing individual, but only marginally, not as much as a person would like to. And that understanding has built a whole industry of coaches who can go in and support people to really transcend to their next performance. And by performance, I don't only mean productive performance in life, relationship, health, wellness. All of that good stuff can happen if you're working with a coach. So what had happened for me was I personally had used a lot of coaches, teachers, educators. That's how my story kind of evolves as a person. Is I came from a little town in India called Jaipur, and I got to where I am today thanks to all the teachers, coaches, educators who showed up in my life and showed me the path. And that kind of got us interested to kind of look at these coaches and wonder, why is it that people are not engaging with these coaches? Why is it that coaches are not making the kind of money they should be making or finding the freedom they should be finding, while, of course, serving the tribe? And we understood the dynamic is because, like you rightly said, there was no real one place that somebody could tell them or show them what's possible for them as a coach, as an educator, as a teacher, right? And that is what led to creation of EverCoach first. So EverCoach came in as a platform where we said, what if we simplified business and coaching for coaches, right? Because that was the piece that was missing for coaches. Is there's a lot of noise around saying how to get a client, but that is never a great way to build a great business. It's not only about clients. Yes, you do need clients. Of course, somebody needs to pay for the services that we provide, but that's not what really creates truly powerful, successful businesses. And that led us to create EverCoach. And that further, we wanted to summarize and make that knowledge accessible to as many for a price that was easy and more people can go through, so at least they can get started and get started in the right way. That got us to write the Book of Coaching. So that kind of is the backstory of EverCoach, the Book of Coaching.
Okay, so what is the right way then? Because if it's not going out after clients, everybody's like, well, wait, I'm so confused. So give us the model of what does work.
So we talk about this at length in the Book of Coaching, right? And basically the model revolves around three principles. And anybody who's an entrepreneur knows that there are principles that you follow. Strategies come in handy, but strategies only work until a certain point. After that, it's about principles, the core concepts of what really makes that business work. And every business has its own DNA, right? For coaching, the DNA revolves around three key elements. Element one is you yourself. Most of the entrepreneurs, again, forget that. They don't really work on themselves after a point. For coaches, it's even more important, because if the coaches are not focused on them and really understand themselves, they won't be able to guide their clients in the way they need to be guided, because they are scared themselves. They are fearful themselves. They're not able to ask the question they need to ask. They're not ready to go where they need to go to create a result. So the first element, the first principle is, are you consistently working on yourself? And that's the first principle.
Okay, so I have a question. Wait, I have a question on the first principle. Because you hear this all the time where they're like, oh, that coach read a book on how to lose weight and they didn't do it themselves, and yet they're coaching other people how to do it. And everybody gets in a tiff because of all that stuff. And I remember my mentor when I first started, I didn't have very much business experience at all, and he taught me, and he was like, when you're a baseball coach, you don't necessarily run as fast as the players. And that made me feel better at the time, for sure. But when you look at where that line is of you can't teach if you don't know or if you haven't been there before, where is that line of how much they work on themselves? Should they be 3, 5, 7 steps ahead of the people, or is there no metric for that?
There is no metric for that, and there is a reason why there is no metric for that. And I'll give you an explanation in context of the example that you gave. What if you have not lost the weight and you're helping other people to lose weight, right? What if you have not been really successful in your business? How can you help people be really successful? Can you coach a client that is further in the journey than you? The answer to all of those is yes. When I say you need to work on yourself, it doesn't mean that you have to be this perfect being, because firstly, there is no perfect being. Right. Secondly, a coach's job, as much as, yes, they want to facilitate somebody else's experience, it's like, if I tell you to position somebody else or sell somebody else, would it be easier for you to position yourself or to somebody else? Especially if you trust the other person. It's easier for you to position somebody else because it's easier to ask that question outside. It's harder to ask that question inside to yourself. Now, the challenge here is the coach should be willing to ask the question inside with the awareness that sometimes they won't find the answer, which is why it's always recommended as a coach, you should have a coach, right? Because you will have to take that journey yourself. But what is equally important is nobody should become a coach because they read a book. That's not fair to your client. You will not drive a result with them because a book doesn't make you a coach. A coach becomes a coach because of the second thing that we're about to get into, which is, do they have a developed methodology? A developed methodology is a format that works or tends to work most of the time. Not all the times, because that's not really possible. Everybody is unique, but most of the time. Do you have a proven methodology of getting your client from point A to point B, and point B being the point that they want to get to, right? And if you have a set of tools, if you have a set of strategies that can get a client from point A to point B, and you have evolved it and you've worked on it consistently and you have a solid methodology. Again, a lot of times coaches would get into coaching without a solid foundation of knowing what are they doing. They would read a book and they would think, I want to go out and help out people. And yes, you can go out and help out people, but please don't call yourself a coach. You can just be giving friendly advice, and that's okay, right? Because you don't really know everything. And not that you need to know everything, but you don't know enough that you can actually help someone, and you won't actually get results to your clients, which again doesn't really help you or your clients or the business or just the community of coaches who actually do the work. And actually, before they show up and work with a client, they know what they're going to do and what they are about to do, right? So I hope that answers kind of, or at least kind of goes towards the direction of answering that question.
Yes,
does
it definitely does. Especially because it brings up when, so I joined Coach University, and one of the first things they tell you to do is to go coach. And I was like, but I don't know what I'm doing. So I couldn't even charge my best friend $25 a month to do this. So I was like, okay, it's free, right? So because I didn't feel confident in what it was, and this is like 10 something years ago, but what's amazing and what I think people need to understand is it does develop, and you might suck at first. No matter what you start that's new, it's okay to suck as long as you sort of are willing to go the miles for them. So I love that you have like actually having a methodology that you know has worked in the past is way better when you start than to just randomly make stuff up, right?
Yeah, and know that because you already said you may suck. No, you will suck in the starting. That is an absolute 100% guarantee that your first few clients are going to be absolutely shitty. You're not going to do a good job, and they're going to hate you for it. But that's why when you start, you do something like what you did, which is say, hey, would you be willing to play along? Can we try this? Can we test it? It's like almost even when you create a product outside of coaching, right? Yes, you can charge for the product straight off the bat, but if you're still working out the little quirks of it and what you're putting out is not really refined, maybe the first few clients, you want to just give that as a services for free and say, hey, try this, tell me if it works. And if it does, now I know it works. I've got that's why you launch a beta version of a software if you have a software company, right? It's kind of the same principle. Go out, coach if you're a coach, consult if you're a consultant, teach if you're a teacher for absolutely free for just one thing. Does this method work? do people even like what I am doing?
I love it. All right. So I interrupted you enough. What is number 3?
And the number third one is the one that most people focus on, which is to build a business around it, right? This is the thing that most everybody thinks that's the problem with their business, right? You go to a coach and they 100% of the times will say, I don't have enough leads. I'm not closing well enough. Or my social media is not really perfected. I'm perfecting my funnel, right? This is 100% of people going, that's my problem. And it's sometimes it is really the problem that their funnel sucks, or they don't know how to sell, or they don't know how to position themselves, or their website is really shitty. But a lot of times it's because you have a really bad methodology and it doesn't work. And because you're not driving the result with the person is why nobody's coming. It's because you've not refined your message is why nobody's coming. But it's important, once you've refined your message, once you have developed a methodology, once you are constantly working on yourself, go ahead and work on your business. Build a funnel. Build a webinar if that's your funnel. Build a landing page. Write a book. Speak on stages, whatever that is for you, but find that ecosystem that works for you. And by ecosystem, it means you don't have to do all of these items, right? You don't have to go and speak on stages and write a book and write a funnel. No, you don't have to do all of it. Do it really well, understand it, why it works or why it doesn't work. Try to refine it as much as you can, and then go for the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one, because then also you will end up building a team around it. And that's really understanding business. It's not only about marketing. It's not only about a funnel. It's about building a business around what you do as a result, right? So it's first is you working on yourself, really understanding who you are, why you do what you do, having a full alignment, and also constantly working on yourself. So you can't really stop, right? Second is to build your methodology, which again, yes, you build it once, but you got to keep it evolving. If it doesn't evolve, it again becomes something that becomes stagnant. As it becomes stagnant, your clients don't want to repeat working with you because, well, you didn't evolve, so what's the point for them to work with you? Secondly, because the world evolves and you didn't evolve, you actually were left behind. You just didn't realize it, right? The world has a lot more knowledge every single day. They have a lot more insight every single day. There's new things happening every single day. There's technology developing every single day. You got to adapt to that. You got to have a methodology adapting to that. And then lastly is you constantly work on your business. So that's why I call them the principles. They're not, you do this, and now you're golden. No, you constantly have to keep doing it. And as you work on these 3 elements again and again, it's almost like it's a circle with these 3 elements in it. And as you work on it, your business expands and you start to grow in context of clients, results that your clients get, or returns on your investment that you make in your business, however you want to measure your success.
Okay. So it's all in tandem. Do they all start all 3 at once, or do we go 1, then 2, then 3 when you first get started?
So there is no point working on your business till the time you've worked a little bit on yourself and a little bit on your methodology. And once you've done that is when advisable third step is to start working on your business. But again, one step at a time, because every single time you work on exposing yourself out to the outside world, you need to be able to collect the data to refine your methodology and yourself. And then once it starts to go through, and it could be, and again, this is more depending on your measure of success. Some people think if they're generating $5,000 a month, now it's time to go all in, and now it's time to tandem work with everything, and that's fine. Some won't feel that comfort even if they're making $100,000 a month. So it really depends on you as to what's your measure of success and what feels comfortable to you. But there will be a point where you'll be like, I have my methodology really solid, worked out. I feel like I've done a lot of work on myself. Now it's time for me to really expand my practice. And now let me just keep bringing back people in and consistently work on these pieces at the same time, collecting feedback back from my clients, collecting feedback from my own reality, attending events, reading books, getting my coach to work with me. So constantly I can evolve as a person.
So so I met someone the other day and she has a book. So she has a methodology she's been working with, but she's in the 3rd step where she's doing a bunch of things and none of them are really hitting. And so what's interesting is the niche that she's in is forgiveness. And when she moves to the marketing, she's like, I know that this is core work that helps people, but I don't know how to make it get to the masses. Do you have advice for somebody who's making a little bit, but I mean, I don't even know how much she's making, but she wants to make more for sure. Everybody wants more. Yes, more. So what would you have for somebody like that, especially on that 3rd stage going, I feel like I'm working on myself. I've got that piece. I've got number 2, business help.
So if somebody's asking for business help, usually it would be a longer conversation. But from what you told me, for example, well, her niche is forgiveness, right? What you have to first understand is when you work on your business, the first thing that you work on, or at least among the first few things that you work on, is really understanding what are you doing for your clients, which is also called your message in a way, right? If I go out today, hey, Jaime, let's work on forgiveness today, what will be your response?
I'm like, I'm good, thanks. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. Which is probably why nothing's hitting the mark.
Yeah. I forgive everyone. It's fine. It's not me.
It's like I've forgiven everything, right? So if you have really worked on your methodology and forgiveness is your thing, you would understand what forgiveness really does for people. So coincidentally, it's funny that you say forgiveness is a niche because recently I did an experience called the 40 Years of Zen. I don't know if you know about it.
I do.
But basically, you do.
Yep.
All right. So it's basically 5 days for the listeners. It's 5 days and you're in meditative state like 4 or 5 hours every single day. And you are doing certain exercises. One of the key exercises that they do is called forgiveness. It's literally where you are forgiving your past and past relationships, past experiences, events, forgiving yourself, so on and so forth. It sounds really simple, but it's really intense. It's really, really intense because you're doing it not just saying, oh, I forgive. You actually have to live the experience to fully come out and really forgive, right? And all that kind of stuff, and it has biofeedback and everything.
Yeah, can you actually set the stage for that? Because I know the guys at Cybernaut, which is very similar to Dave Asprey's thing too. And I don't think people know about this enough. Like I meditate, they know I talk about meditation all the time, but they don't know about this thing. So if you could explain what it is, that would be killer.
Absolutely. So 40 Years of Zen is basically an integration of Eastern practices and Western science in a way, right? So what they did is they said, we at this point, and this is, I think this was like 10, 15 years ago that NASA developed it to train astronauts. Basically the technology, and I could be wrong about the story of how biofeedback or neurofeedback started, but I feel like that was the one because I also in the past I worked with a NASA scientist and they said it was developed there. So again, fact check me, I don't know, but really it was neurofeedback is what it is. It basically means that your brain has impulses, like impulses like, what do you call, like electric currents. They have electric currents happening, and that's how messages get passed to you, or messages get passed back to the body, right? So everything has a reaction in your brain. That's how your brain works. And because it's an electric pulse, what happens is you can measure it. You can know what's happening in your brain based on what you're doing or how you're reacting to a particular thing. And if you can map that, you can map how your brain is in a particular situation or what your brain is experiencing when some event happens or a memory of an event happens and so on and so forth, right? And that is also why you can train your brain to do certain things. Is basically you can go, oh, my brain is not connecting in this particular way, but an optimized brain would connect this way because, like now they've studied enough brains. So it kind of, they kind of help you train your brain a little bit like that. And at the same point of time, what they do is they train you to get consistently back into a state that is called the alpha state of the mind, right, or the brain. An alpha state of brain is basically which is associated with high creativity, high intuition, all that kind of stuff, right? So what you're doing in 40 Years of Zen is basically they attach your brain with I hope I'm using the right words. Electrode is what I would call it, but I don't know. Maybe they call it something else there. But basically where they are tracking what's happening in your brain and they're taking feedback. So that's why it's neurofeedback based on the impulses that your brain are doing, based on the activity that you're doing. So you have headphones on, which kind of gives you a guidance of, are you able to hit the alpha state? Are you hitting it again and again? And are you staying there consistently while you're meditating, right? So that's kind of what is happening as an exercise. So you're coming back into alpha again and again, and you're staying in alpha, which trains your brain because it's like a acquired skill. Now your brain knows how to stay in alpha for a longer period of time. And it is, by the way, true. So anybody who wants to train that way, it's a phenomenal course. It's 5 days of absolutely nothing else that you can do because your brain is just tired as hell and you sleep like a baby because you're just working your brain for like 8 hours every day, 9 hours actually every day. So that basically is what is happening inside what they call the pod. And so what happens is, of course, you're training for alpha, but a way to release your brain to get into alpha more easily and often, there are many exercises, but one of the key exercises that we practice for about a day and a half is forgiveness. Is because what happens is our brain has subconscious memory or unconscious memory of a lot of events would create a particular behavior in life, like how you react to things in life. It kind of is triggered by those subconscious things. So even consciously, you might go like, oh, I've forgiven you, let's say a past relationship or partner, so on and so forth, right? Yourself, which is like the hardest thing to forgive. Like you might go, oh, no, I'm past this, right? So consciously you can say that, but subconscious memory is a little harder to delete or reset, if not delete, right? So what happens in this particular exercise is they help us retrain and release this subconsciously, because again, they're helping you get into the alpha state. So it helps to release subconsciously or unconsciously. So that's kind of a really long explanation, and I hope I did not butcher their science completely while doing that.
But I love that.
It doesn't come after me.
Yeah, we'll put links with more information for sure. But I really appreciate that because I don't think people understand what is out there technology-wise of actually reprogramming your brain on purpose, right? When I heard about it at first, I was like, okay, there's a conference here called Voice and Exit, and they talked about the exact same thing. And I'm like, so I don't have to meditate every day? I could just go in a little pod thing, and then it'll be like 40 years? That's amazing, right? The fact that you can do stuff like that is insane. Go you for doing it. Okay, so I know we sort of got off track, but I think it's huge, and we will totally put some links on there. So what would you do in the case with a coach that really is working on forgiveness, even though like you didn't go to that place to go, oh, I need to forgive everybody?
Yeah, I didn't, right? So that's kind of like how you need to think about your message. It's like they call that message 40 years of Zen. It has nothing to, like it doesn't say forgive yourself in 4 days or anything like that. They say, okay, this is what you experience with it. This is the outcome you can expect. So the outcome I was expecting going there is I would have a deep meditative experience and I will be able to perform at a higher level, right? And the higher performance thing, like I said previously, is what people hire coaches for. Most of the time is because they want to be, it's not that they are in some kind of misery, because then they usually need a therapist and the coach should just say, hey, I think you need a therapist, go talk to a therapist. This is not a coaching problem, right? So that's a different conversation though, right? So what needs to happen is as a coach is you're helping people elevate their performance most of the time. And because of that is why I went to 40 years of Zen. Now, forgiveness as a practice, and again, I need to know her work enough to really be able to suggest something. But just making an assumption here, if she is helping people forgive themselves or life instances and so forth, it could be that she could be positioning living a more free life or living a more high performance life or removing blocks that might be holding people back in different areas of life. Because when you forgive yourself, especially if there is something that you've held on to really hard, and again, not a forgiveness researcher here, so from whatever I know, is if you have had stories holding you back, and she could be having an expertise in one of these areas, doesn't have to be all of them, especially if she's new and not generating a lot of revenue and has a small audience, she could focus in. Let's say, for example, it could be a lot of people have blocks of bad memories around health, around relationships, especially in today's time, terrifying memories around relationships, terrifying memories around money. You could be actually talking about how to really get to being how to really be more abundant, or how to really find the relationship of your life, or and so on and so forth. Because these blocks that stop people are the reason why they can't move forward to taking a chance again, let's say in a relationship, right? So she could be digressing into a real outcome that a person can make meaning of, and if they can make meaning of it, they can understand her process. Right? Now, eventually what will happen, and again, if she's already written a book, she might be onto something, and that might become the story that she actually tells, because books are powerful. Books are, because they're easy to consume, because the book is like $19, anybody can get one, and you can listen to it these days, and you can walk around, you can I have books all the time, and I read half of them in the sense of like midway and everything, but I get excited about the idea that the person is talking about, and then I want to know more about the person. So if she's already written a book, which is really exciting, she could just use the book as the story that she tells without actually talking about forgiveness at all, right? Let the book be the message. Let the book be something that gets in front of more and more people, because as the book will go in front of more and more people, what will happen is people will get excited about the idea of forgiveness, right? I'll give you an example. This example is from, what's her name? Brené Brown. Do you know Brené Brown?
Oh, yes.
People, if you don't know, amazing lady. Phenomenal work, and she's done a lot of work. I don't know what her domain is called, or it's not coming to me right now. But basically, her work has become really popular in an area called boundaries, or having boundaries, right? Which, if you think about it, do you want to know more about boundaries? The answer will be like, what boundary are you talking about, right? Nobody knows what boundaries even mean until the time to actually get exposed to the idea that Brené talks about. And that's kind of where it could be the other way around, where you start with a concept that is delivered through in a full package, and that becomes the idea after. Living in the Now was popularized by Eckhart Tolle, right? So Power of Now was the name of his book. Nobody cares about now until then, or at least the way he said it. Nobody cared about it before Power of Now came in. Power of Now was the name of the book, right?
Yeah.
Eckhart Tolle's book, yeah. Yeah, so that's kind of like, that's a book creating the conversation. So you could create a conversation as well if you want. If you've done especially deep research on it, it depends on how deep the research is on it, because that's what really makes it really popular. For example, I think Dave came out with a book called Headstrong. I don't actually know if that, I would believe that it profiles a lot of 40 years of Zen. I haven't had a chance to read the book, but it's basically, he didn't even lead with 40 years of Zen. He said headstrong. Why? Because it's neurofeedback, right? Neurofeedback is not new. It's been here for 10 years, but it became popular because he talked about it in a way that made sense to people.
Yes. Okay. So it's describing the method instead of going in the pain or the outcome, and the person doesn't care about the method. They only care about the pain or the outcome.
Yes.
So you have to speak to one of those, either the pain or the pleasure that they're going to receive. And it's so much easier said than done. When it's in your own business, it's hard to look at. That's the reason why I said, hire a coach or someone else that can tell you what to do, because it does make a huge difference.
Exactly. That's very true.
What are some of the stories that you've seen from, because you've been doing this for a while, the book came out last year. What are the stories that you've seen of people really improving their coaching practice? Because I feel like people come to me because they're like, you're a successful coach, teach me your ways, right? And mine took a lot of time, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm extremely happy for where I am right now, and it did take some time, so we're not going to like do the crazy shortcut method. But I would love to know what you have people really look at, or what stories people can feel inspired from. Because I have a feeling a lot of people are like, I can't make any money at this. That's not real, quote unquote, money, whatever their line is on what real money is. And then they give it up, or they go back and get another job or something. And I want to help those people right now. So you tell me, what are some stories or some inspiration that you've heard from the book coming out and your methods?
So one of the things that I feel that definitely gets quoted a lot, especially by individuals who are new in the business, from the book. And that's also one of the reasons why we wrote the book, is because exactly what you said. Most people, because they don't have a line to know what is success, what is failure, what takes what time, they try something for 2 months and they go, oh, okay, this is not for me, or this is too hard, I don't know, this will never make money, so on and so forth, right? So they have this imaginary scale, but that scale doesn't really have any real value in context of for them to know where they are at in the journey. So what we did is we created a ballpark. And again, this is a ballpark. It's not set in stone or anything like that. But we said, okay, let's do the research. Let's ask generally, because we have almost over 100,000 coaches that receive our emails on a daily basis. And we researched to find out how much time does it take for somebody to get to a particular level, and what should be their activities at that particular level for them to transcend to the next level and the next level and the next level. Wow. Because that would give somebody a baseline to kind of work with, right? To go, okay, here is where I am in the journey.
I wish I had that when I started. Man, that would have been helpful.
So that kind of comes in the book. And just to give you a brief of what it looks like, is basically we said there are 4 stages, and that's where we stop. There's stages further than that. We kind of stop at 4 because usually people kind of stop at 7 figures and then they go, okay, if I make 7 figures, I'm good, right? So the stage 1 is what we call the soldier. The soldier is when you make under 20,000 in your income. This is where you should be doing coaching part-time. This is the time where you're testing your methodology. This is the time when you're failing more than you're becoming successful. This is the time where you will work with a client and sometimes will freeze because you wouldn't know what the heck to say right now. You know, these are those times you're developing a methodology. You're going out there, you're testing yourself in many ways for you to be able to actually become a full-time coach. Then after soldier is the next stage, which is we call the dame or the knight, depending on if you're female or male, right? So the dame or the knight stage is where you are now a little bit more ready. Your methodology is starting to solidify. You kind of are getting results again and again, but you're still like not really making a lot of money, but you're making somewhere, let's say, between $20,000 to $60,000. This is where you're kind of finding that safe spot which also sometimes is enough for people to find the comfort to say, all right, I can quit my job and become full-time in it. Or it might be where you're like, okay, this is a great part-time thing, and this is all I want, right? So this is where some coaches will go, this is all I want because I want to feel I'm contributing to the world, and this is my give back, but I really love my daytime job, and I don't want to risk being in this business all the time. With nothing wrong with that, but that's where this segment is usually. This takes anywhere between 2 to 5 years, right? Again, you can accelerate the pace, but usually this is what the timeline, actually it's less than 5 years, it's 2 to 3 years is where you will be at this one. Then you will get into the prince or princess stage. Prince or princess stage is where you start crossing 100,000. You could be doing anything like 250,000 sometimes. That range. This is where you now are probably hosting groups. You're not only doing one-on-ones. You sometimes, if you are excited about teaching a lot more than coaching, you would discover that. And so you'll end up creating courses. You might end up writing a book, so on and so forth. But basically your revenues are significantly higher. You definitely have started to hire a team, and you cannot have a day job at this point. You kind of go, okay, cannot have a day job. All I'm doing is coaching, teaching, training, whatever you want to call yourself, and whatever your focus is. And again, the distinction to remember is a lot of times people come in the business thinking they're a coach, but they're more of a teacher, right? And the reason why we even distinguish these two words is because if we don't, it gets confusing, right? Because what happens is sometimes people will come on a call and they'll start giving a lecture. And that lecture is more a teaching format than a coaching format. And the expectation of the client is more that it'll be more deep dives with them, right? So that's kind of just for the person to understand, is to go, oh, I'm more of a teacher because I like to just go and present the ideas. I don't like to sit patiently and wait for the person to respond and then come back to them, right? And there's nothing right or wrong. It's just more a choice you make based on your personality, right?
Well,
so that's the principle.
I really appreciate you saying that, because I don't think anybody really makes that distinction. I can't help coaching. Like, my mentors told me not to coach, and I was like, I will coach someone in the grocery store. Like, I can't help it. It's sort of a thing. But the teaching side, a lot of people are teachers, and then they go like this and they don't understand why the coaching side isn't working as well. I'm like, you're selling them something that's different than what they said they wanted. And that's not bad, like you said. So thank you very much for making that distinction. I want everyone to think about which one they are right now. And you can be both, don't get me wrong, but you need to know when you do what. All right, continue.
Yeah. I am both, for example. I teach most of the time. Once in a while, I like to coach. But it's like you could be both, it's fine, but you just need to know when you're playing teacher, when you're playing coach, if you're playing both, right? And the final one is where we call the king, queen, or the king stage, which is where you probably have a big team. You have to have a few online programs because now it's becoming unscalable for you to just coach in groups even. And you could be doing anywhere between 250,000 to 1 million. And that's kind of where you're at. And that's where we said, okay, these are the 4 tiers, and that might take up to 7 to 8 years, the final tier to get to, right? And so basically this timeline, or this rough timeline that you have, again, it can change based on people. Like, for example, there was a particular coach that came to me, and we were talking about their journey. And their journey was they hit 6 figures in like 6 months, right? But the thing is that you need to know the backstory of the person, which is why there's another chapter in our book, which is called The False Legends, is where people come in and say, oh, I'm a 6-figure coach. It took me only 6 days or 6 months. And I'm like, all right, tell us the backstory a little bit, right? So the backstory of this person wasn't doing anything like that. But the backstory of this particular person was they were in Silicon Valley before. They had sold 2 companies before they became a coach, right? So they already knew everybody, and everybody already wanted to work with them. So for them to get to 6 figures was 2 clients. And if 2 clients out of 20 people that they knew was easy peasy, they had to have 4 conversations and then roll the 2 clients. And yes, they were 6-figure coach in 6 months, but that was because of their backstory. It had nothing to do with what usually happens. So this, of course, is more just an average line that we try to give to people, so people don't get bonkers on, oh, they did it in 6 days. How do I do it in 6 days? Yep. You don't. It takes time, like you already mentioned. It just, you can slow pace it, fast pace it based on how much time you're putting into it, what's your past experience, what are you willing to do, what are you not willing to do, so on and so forth.
Thank you for that. I know, because it makes good headlines to say six months to 6 figures or 6 days or whatever it is. And then you go back and you're like, oh, they've been running companies forever and they know digital marketing like the back of their hand. And you're like, kind of forgot about that. And we compare, unfortunately, right? So even, especially when you're at the beginning. So I like to tell people, like, commit to 10 years. Like, just know that it's going to take 10 years and you'll get there. But we think that it'll happen in a year. And then we feel like, oh, that wasn't worth it. And then you leave. And then we don't actually stick to me, it's the commitment that counts, the hardcore commitment. Even if you can only do 10 hours a week for 10 years, it'll still gosh darn add up. Right. And I think people don't give themselves the benefit of the doubt on how long it can take and where we start. Very, very big difference. And I'm going to highly recommend everyone get the book so that way they can learn more, because it's got sound advice. And I wish I had that when I started coaching 10 years ago. So thanks for writing it now, at least, because it's helpful.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
So, but you also said, I know we have to wrap up in just a minute, but you also said you have 100,000 people on your list. So everybody's probably like, how do you get 100,000 people on his list? So what's working the best marketing wise for you guys to be able to have people that are paying attention to your emails and have that many on such a broad spectrum of coaches?
So what we have done, and again, this is where the backstory also comes, right? So EverCoach itself is only a 3-year-old company. It's a small, new company in many ways. But at the same point in time, I've been working in the digital marketing space for almost 10 years. I helped build a company called Mindvalley before that, right? And the company that kind of is a partner in this project is also Mindvalley, because we co-founded this company together. So that's kind of the backstory of what we built and how we were able to build it so fast. But at the same point in time, what we had developed as a partner in Mindvalley and as the CEO of Mindvalley and now the co-founder of EverCoach is that we developed a unique methodology of understanding that if we provide value in a particular format, which we call the masterclass format, if you provide value in that particular format, over time we win, and we win massively, right? So initially it's cash intensive because you don't always tend to collect the cash back what you invest. So initially you're almost running like a dollar in, dollar out type of campaigns. But eventually what happens is, because it starts to get momentum and people start to recognize that if it's a masterclass by this company, it's phenomenal, we should go for it, it tends to convert into much higher return on investment, right? So that's kind of what our format has been, is where we have kind of really made the point that our masterclass are best in class, are best in the market, and that are loaded with tremendous amount of value and results while you're on the class. So whereas most people will design webinars or online trainings that are designed to sell, we design our masterclasses to provide a result. It's not going to be the full result because that's not possible in 40 to 60 minutes, which is usually the length of a class, but it's designed to drive a result almost while you're on the class or through some exercises that you might do right after the class. But basically the point is that you will remember that class. You won't forget. You would appreciate the class itself, even if we position something in the end, right? So that's kind of the core idea of building masterclasses and building trainings that are result-oriented in itself. And then in the end, we position our whatever product that will advance that training to further for about 5 to 7 minutes. It's real easy. It's not something that people feel like, holy cow, we just went, like super salesy on me. It's not. It's very simple. But that actually creates more appreciation in the market over time. Initially, like I said, it's the first few classes might not do as well because it is also a particular skill that we've developed over time to how to teach really well. And that's what we do as the first step, is we teach very well. At least that's what we believe, that we teach very well, is we teach very well on the class. And so when they are being taught on the class so well, we hope that if they would want that result, they would come and join the full program. And that seemed to work out really well for us. And that's how we built our tribe of over 100,000 now.
I love that you practice what you preach, though. You've got the methodology, and you're like, we're the best teachers. This is the format we know we do. And then you level it up. And now, of course, everybody else don't necessarily just throw money at things that aren't necessarily going to work if you're doing dollar for dollar, if you don't have the background that he has, just as a caveat. Because it does, and that's the thing to me with business, it's so fluid for you and what you know and your team and how it goes, because you knew that this would be most likely successful, even if at the beginning was losing a dollar for dollar. Long term, it would be way more because of your 10 years in it. So give yourself a break, people that are just starting right now or only a couple years in and doesn't feel like you're really hitting that sweet spot. A lot of the people that I interview, a lot of people that you guys are hearing talk about this stuff have a ridiculously awesome background. Okay. Sorry. Caveat. I really appreciate you being completely transparent about that too, because I think everybody gives themselves a hard time for some of this stuff, and everybody's a work in progress. We do the best we can with what we have. So I'm going to start wrapping up because I know I need to go, and you need to go because I know it's LA and early morning and I'm sure you want to get going. What's one action listeners can take this week to help move them forward towards their goal of 1 million?
So first thing is work on your product as much as you can, or refine your product as much as you can. And the long-term product always wins. In the short term, marketing might win, but in the long term, the product will always win because there is nothing like having clients praise about what you did for them. And if you can focus on that and constantly look for feedback on this, working on your product doesn't mean you sitting in a corner thinking this is the best product ever, which is, again, a thing that happens a lot of times. You think your stuff is like the best that is in the market. That's just not how it works. You got to go out, you got to study, you got to collect feedback, you got to drive results. You got to see if people are getting results with what you put out. And if they are, trust me, eventually you will win. But it will take time. Make an 18-month plan, a 36-month plan. Don't rely on the next 3 months. It doesn't work that way. That's not real business. That's an opportunity, and then you can go do cryptocurrency as much you want. But if you want to build a real business, it is reliant on strong fundamentals and a great product.
Yes, back to the old school business methods that have worked for history instead of info marketers that are like, you just have to be good at marketing. You can sell crap. That's not true. Thank you for being a good guy. Really, really appreciate it. Where can they find more about you and where they can get the book and all that fun stuff online?
Well, the best would be to just go to evercoach.com, evercoach.com, evercoach.com. So that would be the domain that would give us all the information about what we are doing there. And you can get on the list. You can see what we do. If you are interested in the book, just go to thebookofcoaching.com, thebookofcoaching.com, and it will redirect you to evercoach.com where the book is available. So you can go out and get that.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much for calling me here.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed that interview. And if you want to check out more amazing resources, I'm only curating the best of the best. Go check out eventualmillionaire.com. You can take the Eventual Millionaire quiz, figure out where you are in business and what you need right now. Plus, you can look at curated resources specifically for you on the new Start Here page. I'm so excited. Please join us. Please let me know if you need anything at all. I'm here for you. And have a fantastic day. Bye.